How do we get somebody to go from I don't want it, I might want it, I don't even know what I should want, to wanting to move forward by become your client and say yes? Welcome back to the Leaders Only podcast, where we talk about business, leadership mindset, and just pretty much anything revolved around building an incredible life. You know, one of the reasons that I started this podcast is because I felt like on the way to where we're at now, there wasn't really a place to go to learn tangible skills that are needed in order to succeed and further yourself and just get better overall in every area of your life. And so some background about me, I built a sales company that does over 8 figures a year. I own over $10 million worth of real estate, and I've built a multiple 7-figure income that's streamlined and in all honesty doesn't really need me. I plan on teaching you and documenting everything that I learned along the way. And if you get something out of today's message, if you can do me a favor, if you can like, share, and subscribe, it will give us the ability to further our message and help more people, which is what we're all about. Thank you guys so much. Let's dive in. I'm excited to be with you guys today. And the reason is today we're going to be covering one of the most important skill sets that you can ever learn and develop when it comes to not only increasing your own income, but increasing the distribution of your business, which ultimately leads to more revenue, more profits, and more importantly, it leads to you being able to impact more families' lives through the product and service that you're offering. And so I'm going to go over one of my favorite sales processes with you guys today, and it helped us take one of our businesses from a 7-figure business to an 8-figure plus business, which will soon ultimately be a 9-figure business. And so I want to go over that process with you guys because it made a massive difference, not only in my life, but in the life of everyone that I taught to use the process as well. And before I actually teach you the process, there's just a couple of things I want to mention to you. First thing I want to mention to you is just make sure that your intentions and your integrity is there. And the reason I say that is because I'm going to teach you a process that's going to give you the ability to get people to say yes to you. And so if your heart's not in a good place and you're getting people to say yes to your product or your service, so that way you can fill your own pockets versus trying to really make a difference in their life, that's not the intention of me teaching you this. I'm teaching you this that way you can first and foremost make a difference in the lives of other people, and in return of the value that you give to other people, help your own family increase profits as well. And so just make sure that your heart's in a good place as I go over this process, because like I said, I don't want a whole bunch of people with this skill set going around doing wrong by people. I want a whole bunch of people with this skill set going around making a difference in the lives of other people. And because of that value that they add to other people's lives, they're able to make a difference in their own financial life as well. Sound good? Can we do that? Awesome. So the second thing that I would mention to you is that presenters make statements while closers ask calculated questions that gets the prospect to say yes. Because there's a huge difference between an amateur salesperson and a professional salesperson. An amateur salesperson tends to list all the benefits, and they talk the entire time. It's not a conversation. There's no dialogue between the prospect and the salesperson. It's just them sitting there listing the benefits. This is why it's so good. This is why you should have it. This is why it's amazing. But they don't get any buy-in because it was never conversation-based. It was all, here are the benefits. While on the other side, a professional salesperson, their sales process isn't a presentation, it's a conversation. So the entire time they are leading the prospect down a road, and the end of that road, or at the end of that road, is the prospect or client moving forward. And it's all conversation based. So they're asking calculated questions that gets the prospect to say yes. They ask calculated questions that gets the prospect to buy in to what it is that they're offering. They create buy-in. They establish a whole bunch of yeses, and they establish a mutual agreement that this is something that they need. And they do it through conversation. They don't do it through presentation. And number 3, last but not least, before I actually dive into the process with you, make sure that you believe in the product and service that you're offering. Those who believe will be believed, and those who are convinced will be convincing. So if you don't believe in what you're offering, and if you're not convinced that it's good, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get someone else to believe in the product and service that you're offering. Influence is the transfer of energy. So if I'm going to influence you to move forward and become my client, then guess what? I need to transfer that energy to you, but I can't transfer something that I do not have. So I have to have the belief. I have to be convinced, or it's going to be very difficult for me to get them to say yes. Does that sound good? Can we do that? Fantastic. So let's talk about the sales process. How do we get somebody to go from I don't want it, I might want it, I don't even know what I should want, to wanting to move forward by become your client and say yes? I call it the 3-step sales process, and over the 3 tiers to getting someone to say yes and move forward. I know it's a little bit long-winded, but to be honest with you, I just couldn't come up with a better name. So let's talk about it. What's tier number 1? Tier number 1 is you have to establish trust. Trust in you, trust in the company, and trust in the product. And you have to have trust in all 3, or they will not do business with you. Not 2 out of the 3, but all 3. And let me explain. So why do they need to have trust in you? Because if they don't believe that you can get them from where they are to where they want to be, if they don't think you have the competence, if they don't think that you have the wisdom, if they don't think that you have the experience and or the education to help them get from where they are to where they want to be, they're going to go find another representative at that same company who can offer the same product and get it from them. On the other side of things, like I mentioned earlier, is you have to have trust in you as a human being and your intentions and your integrity. And the reason is that salespeople already have a bad rep. And so if you do not come across as extremely trustworthy, as somebody who always does the right thing, who's somebody that's extremely integrity driven, even if they think you're competent, they're going to doubt your competence because they doubt you as a human being and they doubt your integrity. Number two is they have to establish trust in the company. Nobody's going to spend their hard-earned money and buy a product and or invest money into a company that they don't know is going to be around in the next 5 years, that they don't know is going to do right by them. So even though you might be trustworthy, if the company's not trustworthy, if the company has a bad reputation, it's going to make it very, very difficult for them to want to trust you and move forward, no matter how good you are, no matter how amazing the product is. Which leads me to number three, is you have to establish trust in the product, because they might like you, they might like the company, but if they don't think the product is very good or that they can get a product better somewhere else, no matter how much they like you, and even though their company might be legit, they're going to go find a better product somewhere else, because I'm sure they can find another credible company with another credible person that can just offer a better product. So by you doing this, you're going to establish trust, which will make it a lot easier to succeed and get someone to say yes. And once again, that's the first tier to the sales process. So that leads me to tier number two, which is you have to create a need for the product and service that you're offering. And the way that you do this is by using not just logic, but also emotion. You have to use logic and emotion. You have to use both, or else they will not move forward. And let me explain. If you sell just on logic, yeah, they might look at it and say, wow, I need this. This is really good. This is really beneficial. But when you sell just on logic, a lot of times you'll get, I need to think about it, and or I'll get it later, right? I'll get it when it's convenient. I'll get it a month down the road or 2 months down the road, because there's no emotional need to get it in this exact moment. And then on the flip side, if you sell just using emotion, you're going to get a lot of people that move forward on the spot, because buying is an emotional decision. So you'll get a whole bunch of people that buy right on the spot. The problem is you're going to have a whole bunch of people that have buyer's remorse either that day or a couple of days down the road. And if you're in a business where they can charge back your commission or whatever it might be, that's not a good thing. You want to have clients or prospects that stick and stay and never go away. And so the only way to do that is to include logic, because they might buy emotionally, but if they can rationalize later that, wow, this is really good, this product's incredible, yeah, I remember why I bought it, then they end up keeping it. Logic makes them keep it. Emotion gets them to move forward right away. So if you use both, you'll get a yes. So last but not least is tier number three. And I like to call tier number three the hot seat. And the reason I call it the hot seat is because let's say you were sitting in a chair and that chair got extremely hot. Are you going to stay there or are you going to get up? You're going to get up. Why? It's super uncomfortable and you can't stand to be there anymore. Well, tier number three, the reason I call it the hot seat is because you have to disturb them to the point that they are uncomfortable about where they are currently at. And then what you want to do is you want to entice them so that way they know that there's a solution. So that way they're not just moving from an uncomfortable place and not having a place to go. They're moving from an uncomfortable place and they now know where to go. So you have to disturb them and entice them. And so when it comes to disturbing someone, you have to be very careful, because if you do this the wrong way, it's just going to lead to them not liking you. And like I mentioned in tier number one, they got to like you and trust you. So you don't want to be counterproductive. But you do have to disturb them or else they're going to be too comfortable and they're not going to be uncomfortable enough to move. So how do you go about disturbing someone? The way that I like to do it is by being the messenger. I don't want to be the source. Instead of telling them your product is horrible, your service is horrible. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate through different articles out there and or using Google or YouTube or whatever I need to use to explain to them why their product is no bueno. I want them to be uncomfortable, not because I said it was bad. I want them to be uncomfortable because there's a whole bunch of articles out there, whole bunch of videos out there talking about why it's bad. And so that's one of the ways that I disturb them, where I'm not the bad guy. I'm just introducing them to the bad guys. And now actually I'm the good guy because I was the only person willing to be honest with them. So the second way to disturb them is to ask them what they dislike about where they are currently at. And let me explain. Let's say I was selling gym memberships or I was a fitness trainer. I might ask the question, this might say, hey, just curious, what would you say you dislike about your body right now? If you're going to work with me, I need to know what you dislike about your body so that way I can help you fix it. And now guess what they're going to do? They're going to now list everything that they dislike about their body. And by them listing all of these things, it's going to make them uncomfortable. And that uncomfortableness is what's going to lead to them wanting to move. Let's say I was in the financial space. I might ask them the question, hey, just curious, what do you dislike the most about your current financial situation? What causes you the most stress right now in your current financial situation? And if they start to list off what stresses them out and what they dislike, guess what this does? It leads to them being frustrated and it leads to them wanting to make a change. They are now in an emotional state of, I don't just want to change, I need to change because I can't take this stress anymore. I dislike this so much, I just don't want to be here anymore. And so by you doing that, it's going to make them want to move. Then at that point, what you have to do is you have to entice them, meaning you have to give them a solution. Because if you just make them upset about where they're at, but then you don't give them a solution, now you're just a bad person, right? And if you just give them a solution and you don't show them why they should be frustrated about where they're at, then guess what? They're not going to be uncomfortable enough to move. So remember, you have to disturb and entice. And if you do those two things, a part of tier 3, it's going to make it a lot easier for the prospect to want to move forward with you. So with that being said, that is the 3 tiers to getting someone to go from I'm not interested, I might be interested, I don't even know what I should be interested in, to saying yes, moving forward, and becoming your client. So once again, build trust, create a need, and put them in the hot seat and watch a whole bunch of people start saying yes to you. Do it with good intentions, do it with a good heart. By you doing this, getting really good at this, not only is your income going to spike, not only are you going to be able to distribute more product, bring in more revenue, which ultimately leads to more profits, but more importantly, it's going to give you the ability to help a lot of people if your intentions are pure. So with that being said, if you got something out of today's message, if you could do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, because it's the only way for us to reach more people and help a lot more people with this type of information. Thank you guys so much. Tune in next week.